Roy Orbison was one of the most distinctive voices in rock and roll history, known for his powerful, emotional ballads and unique vocal style. Despite his immense success in the 1960s, his career took a complicated turn in the 1980s, a period during which he was reportedly blacklisted from many radio stations. Understanding why this happened involves looking at the changes in the music industry, Orbison's personal career challenges, and broader cultural shifts that impacted radio programming during that decade. In the 1960s, Roy Orbison was a major star with hits like Oh, Pretty Woman, Crying, and Only the Lonely. His dramatic, operatic voice and melancholic songs set him apart from his contemporaries. However, by the early 1970s, his popularity began to decline. The rise of new music genres, including disco and hard rock, shifted the public's attention away from Orbison's style. Additionally, changing tastes meant radio stations were focusing on fresher sounds and newer artists, which gradually pushed Orbison out of heavy rotation. By the 1980s, the radio landscape had changed dramatically. FM radio became dominant, and programming leaned heavily towards upbeat, high-energy music that fit the emerging MTV-driven pop culture. Orbison's somber ballads and traditional style seemed out of sync with this new era. Radio stations, in their pursuit of younger audiences, often sidelined older artists who didn't fit the current trends. This shift, combined with Orbison's own less frequent releases during the decade, contributed to his diminished radio presence. Another factor was the music industry's complex relationship with aging rock stars. Orbison, like many artists from the 1950s and 1960s, struggled to maintain relevance in a market increasingly focused on youth culture. Labels and promoters often prioritized newer acts, leaving veteran performers with fewer promotional opportunities. This commercial dynamic indirectly affected how often Orbison's music was played on the radio, as stations tended to follow industry pushes. It is also worth noting that Orbison experienced personal tragedies during this period, which affected his output and visibility. The deaths of his wife and two of his children in the 1960s and 70s cast a shadow over his life and career. While he continued to create music, the emotional weight of these losses may have influenced both his public presence and the type of material he produced, making it harder for radio programmers to market him in an era craving upbeat and visually driven performances. Despite these challenges, Orbison's talent never faded, and his influence remained strong among musicians and dedicated fans. The 1980s did see a resurgence of interest in classic rock acts, partly due to the emergence of Orbison joined the Traveling Wilburys, a supergroup that included Bob Dylan, George Harrison, Tom Petty, and Jeff Lynne. This collaboration introduced Orbison to a new generation and reminded the world of his incredible vocal gifts, even as traditional radio formats were slow to embrace him again. In summary, Roy Orbison's blacklisting from radio in the 1980s wasn't the result of a single cause, but rather a combination of industry trends, shifting cultural tastes, and personal hardships. The music industry's focus on youth-driven pop and the rise of MTV fundamentally changed the radio programming landscape. Orbison's melancholic style and fewer releases made him less appealing to stations chasing younger demographics. Yet, his enduring legacy as one of rock and roll's most emotional and unique voices remains undisputed, influencing countless artists who followed him.